And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Digital Dialogue Series. We are taking a break from some of the heavy topics, and we're going to have fun and introduce you to some of our guests that are going to be judging the PIVOTChamp Challenge August 31st. My name is Tawana Bain. I'm the founder of the Derby Diversity Business Summit. We, too, have pivoted amidst COVID and civil unrest to make sure that we stayed engaged with our followers. So really quick, I'm going to have all of our guests introduce themselves. We'll start with Obi, then Benny, Miss Renita, then Helen, Stephanie, and then Paige.
Hello, everyone. I'm Obi McKenzie. I am an investment professional. I've been in financial services since 1972, so I've been around for a few minutes across several disciplines: investment banking, commercial banking, venture capital finance, and Bible economics. So I come to financial services and money, how to make it, keep it, spend it, and retire on it from a number of different perspectives. So hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi, I'm Benny Q, 38 years executive, tenured serial entrepreneur, also into real estate. Been doing real estate for about 20 years on a small portfolio under 100 units. Just took a big plunge into tech. I have an app that's going to be launching in September called Candid. Just coming up for my book called On Impact, coming out March of next year. And just really excited about the times and the times that we're in, looking for all the opportunities that are available to make a difference.
Hi, everyone. I'm Renita Bryant, the founder and CEO of Mind Matters Publishing, based in Atlanta. We're a full-service publishing company. We worked with individuals and organizations to publish books, journals, kind of some of everything, booklets, leader guides. And so we really amplify the voices of those that are often underrepresented, overlooked, and underserved. And so I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Thompson, and I am a reproductive endocrinology and fertility physician. And my experiences are in the healthcare field and with running a large physician-owned practice. We actually have the largest all-female group in the country for our specialty of infertility. And so we have really had to make some changes and embrace technology in the digital space in medicine. I'm happy to share with you all some of our experiences going forward and how you can, in the healthcare industry, and an industry that's traditionally never been tech-based, take it to that next level.
Hi, I'm Helen Arcantu. I'm the CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. We're a nonprofit organization. I've spent my whole career being a nonprofit professional, and it's definitely a space where we have had to pivot. We're obviously used to relying on a lot of in-person events for fundraising and program services. So we've learned a lot in a quick period of time and looking forward to being part of this challenge.
Hi, I'm Paige Batcher, and I'm the founder of Kismet Ideas. We're a website design, graphic design, and technology company. We help entrepreneurs launch awesome websites. I'm basically a software nerd, born and raised in Louisville, and we also are working on mindset programs as well as a television series to encourage women entrepreneurs. I'm really excited to be here. I got connected through our client, Eden Bridgman, who runs the Trifecta Gala. And on the surface, I I recognize that I'm super white, but my diversity, I think, comes from a lot of places, including my openness about my sexuality, and just really, my heart is incredibly excited to be here and to be serving in my capacity with my digital marketing nerdiness. So thank you, Tawana, for having me.
You're welcome. Did we get you, Renita?
Yes.
All right. Want to make sure I didn't forget anybody. Sorry for the technical in the beginning. I'm not certain where the mic noise is coming from, but if you hear it, just let me know, drop me a line, and we'll try to do some tech on this end. So here are our judges. We are so excited. We've got just a couple more days. So for all of you that have not yet submitted your application, you have until the 15th to submit. So we brought people here from various industries, and we did that because we understand that our applicants are coming from so many different industries. And so, Renita, I do want to come back to you. Deidre spoke very highly of all that you've been doing around the pivot. Can you share with everyone that's watching some of the things that you've done during COVID to pivot yourself?
Thank you for that. Deidre is awesome. Just as a company, we've already had established relationships with individuals, but what we've kind of turned to are different ways in terms of using technology and leveraging technology. And I think everybody has, right? Everybody, even the fact that we're having this conversation in the way that we're having it, and the competition is going to be virtual. Everyone's really having to learn how to log in, how to have these conversations. So having we had our own portal developed, so for our authors to be able to make a process more streamless for them. But we've also been really focused on how to amplify our message and leveraging word of mouth in a different way, and being able to allow our authors to really be a part of our family in a way that magnifies and amplifies our messaging and our positioning, instead of us having to spend in the way that we would have had to spend before. And so I think from a business standpoint, a lot of the marketing and promotion that you're doing, you're not always seeing the ROI that can be as effective as you want it to be. And what we've found is that a lot of our authors are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us, as long as we're keeping our word and doing quality work for them. And so we've really kind of championed a different amplification strategy that's been working for us of late, and also working with our authors to think about how do they get their messages out there and get their voices out there when most events would have been in person, right? So as an author, you can't have an in-person book signing and an author event in the more traditional way or standard way. So a lot of them started, I don't want to say freaking out, but they kind of started freaking out. So they got worried, like, what's going to happen? What am I going to do next? And so just trying to have virtual kind of book events and book signings and helping ease them, because everybody's at different stages and ages of the process. Everybody's not as comfortable with technology. So helping them along the way and understanding how do you basically use technology to your advantage to promote your book and amplify the message of your book. And so, and also strategic partnerships. We've been very, very focused on helping our authors and ourselves, our company, really leverage strategic partnerships during this time, which has been phenomenal.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you talk about marketing, Paige, which is really what brings me over to you. And I had to really chuckle when you mentioned I'm as white as they come. But you know what? And that's the interesting part, right? Because when people think diversity has so much more than just color. I mean, we're talking age, we're talking ability, we're talking gender, sexual orientation. So you certainly have your experience in understanding diversity as a woman. And then, as you mentioned, sexual orientation or preferences. So, and not only are you participating as a judge, but you were also generous enough to donate some marketing services that some of our finalists are going to walk away with. So let's talk a little bit about that in your business.
Yes, thank you. So we absolutely love design. We think if you look good, you feel good, you show up. And so we are excited to offer graphic design, sort of like a mini branding package for each of the 3 winners. And yeah, we also, I think in terms of what you said about women and women supporting women, I really love that. And I think for us, we have a lot of women business owners as our clients. So we've been working with them on ways to make an even bigger impact. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited to dive in and brainstorm with people about how they can turn their narrative and their messaging into conversion-oriented landing pages, because now everything's on the internet. So everything can kind of start to sound really the same and similar if you write in this brochure-like style. And so we focus a lot on, yes, it needs to look good, but it also needs to either collect an email address or get a phone number or push that next conversion event and make that even more, it's more so like getting people to say, here's my information, but it's more, how can we take businesses and go, here, we're here to lend a helping hand. And now we can help you by doing that. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Can't hear again.
Thank you, Paige. Sorry about that, everyone. The way you're going to get through right now is cutting through the clutter. And so the marketing piece is extremely critical and extremely important for your business. And so for those of you that are just tuning in or are not up to speed on what the Pivot Challenge is, the Pivot Challenge is the kickoff to this year's PIVOTChamp Summit, August 31st through September 2nd. It will all happen online. You can learn more at pivotchamps.com. And today we're talking to individuals from various industries that will be serving as the judges. We'll be talking about what they'll be looking for. We will be talking about some of the things that you'll walk away with, just helping, especially for those that have already applied, to get a competitive advantage. And for those of you that didn't know, to still throw your name in the hat, because we don't close the application until August 15th. All right, so we talked a little bit about page marketing, Renita, and you're with the authors. I know that that's been a big thing for speakers and just people that typically get booked for gigs where they sell their books through signings. But I have to ask Stephanie, because the medical industry just in general has been through a lot. So I am excited to have you on the panel, especially,
Thank you.
How so many people are touching the medical industry right now, whether it be from PPE to staffing. Many people that never thought that that would be a vertical where they would receive any sort of business. Tell us a little bit about how you pivoted and just kind of what's going on in the medical world.
Sure. So, there's long been a lot of resistance to the medical community being digital. And, there's a kind of a traditional thought process that you cannot have the same sort of diagnosis and physical exam and everything else that is necessary. And in some fields, that's really true. From my perspective, I'm a fertility specialist. So actually for us, a lot of what we do are consults and talking. But I think the biggest challenge was within days, we went from 0 to 100. From having absolutely no digital platform besides marketing. And we actually did have some integrative systems where patients could get their lab results, and we did a lot of communication via email. But in terms of the communication with physicians, bringing on new patients, seeing our follow-up patients, we had nothing. So literally within 3 or 4 days, we had to vet systems in terms of what was going to be HIPAA compliant, and be able to transition our patients to being virtual rather than in person. Obviously it was a very crazy and trying time for all of us as we had to make that jump, and we didn't know if and when we would ever be back in that space where we could actually see patients in person. Obviously here in the New York area, the March, April timeframe when that happened was really quite difficult. We have pivoted completely. My practice is actually busier than ever because one, everyone is at home, and it's a lot easier for patients to make appointments and to see a physician, again, especially in a field like mine, where the types of conversations we're having are fine to do online and don't necessarily have to be face-to-face. But if we had to also in a marketing and PR space, let patients know we were still there and available, and we were still open because we had to transition all of our phone platforms, everything. And again, it was almost like if we didn't do this within that 72-hour time frame, our doors would be closed. So with the help of obviously our IT people, even just the physicians, and we have a wide range of physicians. You were alluding to some people not being tech savvy, earlier, and our physicians, range in all ages and stages, and you just had to get it quickly and find the right platform to do that. So we've really made a great transition with that. With medicine in general, obviously it has been an incredibly trying time. I think part of the importance of communication in medicine is again now been taken to social media, and there's so much of who do you believe? You're watching one thing, you're hearing from someone else, from Dr. Fauci versus President Trump, not to be political, but you hear, all of these things happening. So I think it's also up on the onus on physicians and healthcare providers to be able to transmit good and correct information effectively. And that's been another pivot that we've had to do, much in a much different capacity, because it was a life and death matter before, but it really is now, to make sure the public is highly educated when it comes to the things that we really need to be doing as a community and as a society to protect ourselves.
Man, I tell you, listening to that, I thought it was tough in the restaurant industry. I know that's one of my businesses, and we were not online and doing curbside takeout, and we had to mobilize like nobody's business. And it was such a learning curve. So thank you, Stephanie. So Benny, you've got a huge background in the music industry, and reading your bio, you are definitely a man that people would want to know. But the entertainment industry, they took a huge hit. And, as we saw everything from drive-in concerts to concerts from home to certain networks mobilizing very, very quickly to stay engaged with some of the events that they had. Talk a little bit just about the entertainment industry in general and how that impacted your business.
Well, for me, I pivoted prior to COVID. I had already planned on exiting and creating my own company called Diverse Media, which is distribution, marketing, and promotions, a vehicle for independent artists and major artists. So what does that mean? I'm in position now for my 30 years of what I've been able to do for other artists to also do for myself, and as well as give the independent artists an opportunity to grow and get the experience and the wealth of knowledge for folks who might not normally get the opportunity from major labels, right? So we're connectors in that respect. Looking at the business as a whole, I mean, streaming is up. So it just goes, once again, music has always been an undercurrent for us in society, and as well as the people, from, the ship sailing from Africa to now being in the pandemic of the modern age, right? Music is always, prevalent and in the forefront. So there, as we see in a creative space, people finding different mechanisms to create. Erykah Badu made $1 million doing performances in her home, right? Which 9 months ago would have never existed, nor would there have been an audience from that. So people are improvising on how they're merchandising, how they're performing, how they're creating, how they're going in studios. And there's still, the typical means of how we do business as well. So in this time, people are finding pretty much a hybrid of, what was and what is and what will be. And it's continued the business to grow. And as we'll see, what my indicator is seeing how the music business is going to move forward. You just have to look into the Asian markets, right? Because if you think about BTS being one of the biggest income creators in the world, if they're in concerts, then guess what? The rest of the world will follow. If their online strategies are impacting dollars, guess what? People will duplicate. So I think what we as Americans will really start to do is look to the rest of the world in the music space as a whole, right? And take a little bit of ingenuity from other places to figure out how we're going to now figure our next movements forward. Awesome.
All right, Mr. Obi, we talked a little bit about medical. You certainly did pivot. You know, you pivoted in with medical supplies, and that's been a big one. I have seen people that have entered into that lane from industries that I didn't even think they meshed in any way, shape, or form. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we have several finalists that have submitted around medical supplies and PPE. So I'm looking forward to what you have to say on this.
Yes, my wife and I started a medical supply business about 3 years ago while I was serving on the board of Trinity Health New England, which is a 5-hospital system in the New England area, with the parent company, that being Trinity Health out of Michigan, being a 92 hospital system. At the time, we had nitrile gloves manufactured in Malaysia to be sold to the hospitals where I served. However, given that I was on the board, the conflict of interest of my being on the board and our selling those nitrile gloves was prohibited. So we put the company to bed until COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, it made sense to get into the PPE business under our medical supply business. We learned a lot importing our first 40,000 masks and our first.
Oh, well, I tell you what, we've had quite a few people that have submitted applications around PPE. I mean, that's a huge pivot. When you're coming from an industry that has nothing to do with medical, you enter into this lane. I've been really, really impressed with a lot of people that have been able to survive, and not just survive, but also thrive. And speaking of surviving and thriving, Helen, the nonprofit industry, man, it was brutal. It was brutal. And we do have some nonprofits that also applied. Can you talk to us about what that was like as a nonprofit? I mean, fundraisers, keeping them going, ensuring that your operations budget doesn't take a major hit?
Yeah, it definitely, similar to small businesses, nonprofits come in different shapes and sizes. Some of us are under $500,000 budgets. Some of us are closer to 10 million and anywhere in between. So, but the thing we all have in common is we look to donors to support our events, and many of those events historically are in person. And so everything obviously came to a screeching halt for us, similar to other organizations. Or some other businesses, as was shared here. I joke, I felt like we were a thief in the night. We went to work on March 16th. We sat together, quickly signed the dotted line on some technology services that we never had before, packed our desks and left, and haven't been back, to be quite frank. Still to this day, everyone's still working remotely, and we're still going. Our biggest fundraiser, our gala for our centennial, no less, our 100th anniversary, got totally waylaid. Not to mention other, types of events, that again were in person that had to hit halt. So it clearly, from a program service perspective, ironically, we probably easier did the transition to services, moving to technology based. Some of our programs are counseling programs, so we use HIPAA compliant services as well to be able to transition those. From a fundraising perspective, though, it took a little time to figure out how to redo events and to do them virtually and using technology. But people have been very, very creative. And I think that's what I'm excited to see about the applicants, about the creativity that people come up with. We're used to having check writing parties or galas, and now people are having wonderful experiences doing these things virtually. So, and we have done that as well. One of the things we did do is similar to you, is create a web-based social media show on Facebook Live that we do 4 days a week, similar to yours, with all the tech difficulties. I feel your pain. We've dealt with them as well. But it did give us an opportunity to stay engaged with our members, engaged with our donors, and keeping mission conversations going and giving our community an opportunity to hear important educational, inspirational information. So the pivot really was, for us, was, obviously embracing technology like everybody else, but thinking about ways to still have authentic relationships with the individuals that we were used to connecting with, whether it was the clients we serve. We work with a lot of women that own small businesses and women of color that own small businesses. And suddenly you're home with your kids trying to run a small business. And so figuring out how to have a remote platform while you're struggling with that and trying to keep the money coming in. So we had to help those women provide strategies for them. And our social media show ended up being the way that we did that. We brought in experts to talk with them and give them ideas. So through that, we were able to have tentacles out to our members in a platform that was easy for people to access and get information. And so everything from our counseling program to our small business workshops to asking for money all had to go virtual.
Awesome. Awesome. I've honestly, I have just been impressed across the board. I've been impressed with the applications. I have been impressed with some people who took such a major hit and just kept rolling. Like, I have just been so impressed with people's drive to not allow this to beat them. For everyone that is tuned in with us today, we want to thank you. For those that come across us on social media through the broadcast that we're doing, hopefully you'll join us backstage on Hopin, where the other attendees are. We are introducing you to our mentees and also several judges that will be scoring the challengers August 31st during the PIVOTChamp Summit. We kick off with the challenge that night. And so if you're interested in learning more, or if you are a true bona fide pivoter, we want you to apply and submit an application. That application window closes August 15th. And so today we've just got different people from different industries learning about their pivot, learning about how their industry has had to pivot. And then we're getting ready to dive into some of the things that we'll be looking for as judges on the night of the challenge. Obi, I would like to come back to you. You were sharing with us about being in the medical business and you and your wife getting into PPE. Can you share with us some additional thoughts around what you all had in the works?
Sure. That business is just one of the things that we have pivoted to. The most important thing in our pivoting has been flexibility because the environment that we're in is so very uncertain right now. And we are driven by a really clear understanding of the economy, what the post-COVID environment is likely to look like across various asset classes, whether that's PPE or DME or bonds or stocks or real estate or hedge funds, etc. I'm an investor and a financial person, and I've been that way for 50 years. And one of the things that I've come to, particularly now, first of all, in 50 years, I have never seen what I see coming in the economy from COVID and what COVID has done to the economy, particularly for people who don't own stock. Only 50% of the people own securities. And so it's very, very necessary. One of the things that I'm going to want to see in new businesses or established businesses, and I advise them both, is the ability to, is an understanding of the playing field that we are about to experience once the vicissitudes of COVID really get reflected in valuations in real estate, valuations in every single asset class. So I'm going to want to hear from those competitors that they have done a deep dive on what the environment has been and what the post-COVID environment is likely to be and how that's going to impact the business that they are in. And that means access to capital, the cost of that capital, the duration of the loans and equity that will be available in the post-COVID environment. And it is something like we've never ever seen before. So I'm very keen on seeing people or listening to people who stopped, backed up, and really done a careful deep dive analysis on what that environment is likely to be and how that's likely to impact their respective businesses. That to include PPE. I'll just talk for a real quick second about that. When we first got into the PPE business, we were pretty naive about price gouging, fraud, the fraudulent practices coming out of China for various PPE products, and the trouble that a small company could get in by thinking they were importing a KN95 mask when in fact it was not a KN95 mask and it did not protect you from the particulates that it said. So certifications and all of the technology that was involved, we had to learn that. And fortunately, we were lucky, very frankly, because our first import was successful. It was 40,000 masks and some 6,000 face shields. And we just happened to be fortunate in having a relationship with a Chinese manufacturer that didn't get us into trouble. But it wasn't because we knew what we were doing. And so we decided to joint venture with a much larger platform that had a much more complete due diligence process on the quality of the product, the correct pricing, the logistics that were in place to make sure that you didn't get yourself in trouble with a client, and to protect ourselves against mispricing product. So there's so many things that we learned in that first import, which drove me to take lower margins, but with a safer construct by joint venturing with a much larger business that had digitalization, it had EMR connectivity, it had B2B and B2C. So it put us in a much safer position with our potential clients and by keeping us out of trouble. All that being said, it's all, for me, one of the things I'm going to be looking for is a careful, deep dive on the environment that each contestant will be doing business in the post-COVID environment. It's something like we've never seen before, and it's going to impact every single business that we're in. And so the flexibility is the big pivotal that I'm looking at for all businesses, be they large, medium, or small. And I'll stop there. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Obi. Well, you all heard it. You know what this judge is looking for. So if you've applied, make sure you bring your A game, because he is definitely going to ensure that you've looked at the market as a whole. Paige, I want to throw it back to you. We appreciate you joining us for the first half. Can you share with those that are watching some of the things that you'll be looking for and some of the things that are just inspiring you in general for those that have applied?
Yes, thank you so much. One of the biggest things for me is the impact that a company is making on the planet. And I think any company that looked this pandemic in the face and thought, I'm going to take this fear and then turn it into what can I do to serve the world in a bigger way, that's something that I know I'll be looking for. In terms of marketing message, I think that goes hand in hand. If they've been able to transform the way they speak with people, focused on how they can lend a bigger help.
Thank you so very much, Paige. We appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to having you on the Challenger stage on the 31st. You're back. All right, everyone. So for those that are just tuning in, those that are on Facebook, please register and join all the other attendees backstage. We are getting excited about PIVOTChamps.com. PIVOTChamps.com launches August 31st. It'll last through September 2nd. We are bringing you the Kentucky Derby City for 3 days, talking about pivoting, diversity, innovation, you name it. If you need to learn more or you're interested in applying, you can reach out at PIVOTChamps.com. Again, that is PIVOTChamps.com. So during this half, we're going to really talk about some of the things that we are going to be looking for. Now, I'm not a judge. I cannot be a judge and be a little biased because quite a few of you I do know. But I have to say, I've been really intrigued with just the diversity and the applications that have come through. But we really wanted to be intentional and have so many different people from different industries that will also be donating 3 hours of their time throughout the course of 12 months to serve as a mentor for our finalists as well. So each of the 3 finalists in the 3 categories of gross revenue under $1 million, 1 to 5 million, or 5 million or more will walk away with a mentorship package, a package of amazing resources to continue to sustain and grow their business, as well as cash prizes. So Benny, talk to the audience about some of the things that impress you. I mean, again, I'm going to come back and say, in the entertainment world, you've seen and done a lot. And so what are some of the things that will impress you about people that have pivoted during this season? Oh, Benny, I think we got you on mute.
Oh, then you didn't want to hear what I said in the beginning. Oh boy, but the creativity, you know, what's really important when you think about people who have given their lives to art, right? And what that really entails. That's a commitment to what you believe in and your passion, right? And in this point in our lives and what we're enduring with Corona, you have to be committed to your ideas and your passion, right? And being able to move forward. So looking at people who have thought about a way on making an impact, not only in their lives, but also in the lives of others, right? When you're approaching this from a selfless standpoint is really what I'm looking for, because I think things that you commit your all day and every day to, it is success. Success comes from commitment, right? So how you monetize and, you know, how you think about what success may mean on an economic standpoint is secondary to what you feel is what your accomplishment will be, you know, after you're gone, right? Like the dash. So that's really important to me for people who are all the way committed to their dreams and aspirations on how they move forward and how they pivot in this.
Interesting. Very interesting, right? We've been talking so much about business, but the purpose, right? The intent, and the passion. So for those of you that are, you know, getting your pitch ready, be sure that we're not just talking about the numbers or the successes that you've had with the bottom line, but, you know, how are you changing the world? And I'll tell you, you know, just with the protests alone, the different ways in which groups have been organizing around social justice is inspiring. And there have been many new businesses and nonprofit organizations that have been born out of this time. So again, for those that are just tuning in on social media with us, you can hop in with us at Hopin. You can register with us for this session. But we also want you, if you are a bona fide pivoter and you have successfully pivoted your business or your sales strategy, we want you to apply. Application closes August 15th, PIVOTChamps.com. All right, Stephanie, I'm coming back. Medical, very much so like with OB, I noticed quite a few of the finalists that had something around the medical space. Talk to us about some of the things that you'll be looking for those applicants.
So, you know, there are a couple aspects that I think are important, specifically in the medical field. If there were to be an applicant that had a healthcare business, and this may not apply to everyone, but if it is something that will eventually require in-person interactions, I'd like to know how you're going to keep everyone safe. How are we going to change and incorporate all the things that we've learned about COVID and be able to still be productive in our business? I'm sure even the restaurant industry having to shift to outdoor dining. What are some ways that you keep everyone safe but still have your business be as successful as it was, or even get to another level of potential? I mean, even I can say from our standpoint, just as an example, you know, we used to have, and I don't know how many people are with fertility treatment, but we'd have everyone kind of come in at one time for an just changing things to specific appointment times, but still having to learn to manage the volume that goes along with that. So I would be interested in safety going forward, because COVID is not going away. Flu season is among us. And, you know, if this has taught us anything, our health is the #1 priority. So anyone who is applying or looking in the healthcare space, I'd like to know what your plans are for that as well. I think it's also really important to know how someone leveraged the resources that they have that may have otherwise not been a part of their field. What was a unique resource that you had to jump to that may not have been something that you generally would have thought to do? And again, specifically with healthcare, often has a one-track mind in the kind of space that we are, especially, you know, as providers and physicians. So, you know, what was something unique that that jumped out at you. And the third thing I think, and a lot of people have talked about this, which is so important, is resilience. And I'm looking for in the applicants, how they demonstrated resilience, again, in a unique fashion.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Renita, I know that you've also been able to join us for the first half of the second half. But before you hop, can you share with everyone in your space just some of the things that you've learned along the way and what you'll be looking for from our finalists?
Of course. For me, it's really about a consumer understanding. So I think during this time, we've had an opportunity, or all business owners have really had an opportunity to get to know not just your market, but specifically your consumers. So who are you targeting? How do you get to know them better? Because a lot of times people jump into business because of passion and what they want to do. And so in this environment, you're really able to sit back and say, how do I make sure that I'm serving the consumers and serving my market better, right? And with intention. And so to me, I want to look at, and I'll be judging with an eye of, how did you listen to your consumers? How do you listen to the people that have decided that there's a true value exchange? They'll give you money or their time in order for you to give them a product or service, right? And so how are you listening to them? How are you incorporating their feedback and making sustainable strategic choices in your business off of that feedback or based on that feedback? So to me, that consumer listening piece, that consumer understanding and knowledge piece is important, because it can't just be totally from your gut. It has to be that you're listening to your consumers and listening to the market. And again, it's similar to what Dr. Stephanie was saying with a sustainable strategy. So I want to understand, have you created something that also has sustainability over time? And have you thought about any other barriers any barriers or burdens that may come along with the strategy that you've now put into place? And then I think going back to Benny and Paige's point as well about impact, legacy, I'm going to listen for that piece of it as well as kind of that final layering to understand, how are you impacting the greater world, and how does your business create kind of that longer term and longer lasting legacy for you?
Awesome. Awesome. Now, that's a really, really interesting point, right? People are so often in survival mode that they may not truly be listening to the customer. And that can certainly be to your detriment. I know anybody that's been an entrepreneur for any extended period of time have learned, man, I wasn't paying attention to that, and I really, really should have. Any suggestions there on ways in which they can pay attention to what their customer is feeling or where their customers are headed?
Of course. So what I will say, and I have, I guess this was one of my initial pivots. So I have corporate experience. I used to work at some pretty large CPG companies, both domestically and globally, and specifically working on brand strategy in the consumer packaged goods space. And so one of the things that we don't think about, as especially smaller and mid-sized companies, is having some kind of consumer satisfaction check, even at the point of purchase, right? So after someone purchases a product or uses your service, being able to check in, having some kind of satisfaction survey, finding out, was the process seamless for you? Was it an easy purchase, right? Did you get your package on time? Did you get the product? Did it work as you expected it to, right? So understanding, how are their expectations lining up with the product or service that you are providing. And so what I would say are doing small, base-sized surveys, right? Just having different checkpoints, being able to make a phone call, sending a text message, right? Just reaching out and getting some feedback from people and actually listening, because what people really feel value when they're enrolled in the process. So if they know that you're enrolling them so that you can make your business better and you can make yourself better, they're more likely to lean in, to give you feedback and want to help you be better. And so it's just a matter of them seeing that you're actually asking and enrolling them in that process. So first thing I would say is just, you can go on SurveyMonkey, there's Sogo Survey, there are different tools that you can use. But even on your website, do some small base size satisfaction surveys, really get a sense or a sentiment from your target market. Find out, how are you serving them? Are you meeting their needs?
Awesome. And one other way is you can become a winner, and you will have this fabulous mind as one of your mentors if you are one of the winners of PIVOTChamps. But no, you bring a lot of just kind of smart ways of approaching it, because if you're not paying attention, to what that customer is thinking or feeling or wanting, you can be going down the wrong road for too long. And before you know it, your market share looks real different. Regina, thank you so very much for tuning in with us. I am so honored to have you as a judge, and we look forward to having you on the Challenger stage on the 31st.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome. All right. And then there were 4. All right. So we are going to talk about what the nonprofit world is going to be looking for. Now, Helen, we have several people, again, that are nonprofits. And we said, you know what? We did not want anyone to be excluded. And I'm sorry, actually, then there were 5. Mr. Ovi is back with us. We will have several nonprofits or opened it up to several nonprofits. And thanks to Pepsi, they really challenged us to really think broadly and to make sure that we were including all different sizes of businesses. And so, again, we've got 3 different revenue categories: under $1 million, 1 to 5 million, 5 million plus. And there are nonprofits that applied. There are nonprofits that were really just trying to, struggling and figuring it out. You mentioned that you all pivoted to an online series. We certainly pivoted to an online series. But I will tell you that for our organization, pivoting quickly in an effort to stay engaged with our customers. And one of the reasons why, again, our backdrop is the Kentucky Derby when we hold our physical event. And we did not want people nervous and afraid that we were going to be down and out. So we pivoted very quickly, but not all nonprofits did. So for those that have succeeded, they are in the game. What are some of the things that you'll be looking for from a philanthropic perspective?
Well, I do think that moving fast was definitely key and is key in success during this time. So I'll be looking to see that. But, many of the things others have spoken about: resiliency, flexibility, creativity. These are all key, whether you're in a business or in the nonprofit sector, for survival and for success. So really watching what nonprofits have done and what businesses have done in these areas is key. I think for nonprofits, though, very often they get concerned about, that it's a small pot and they work in a silo by themselves, thinking that, that means there's more for us. I think one of the things that we really needed to see at this time is people open their arms and embrace and create partnerships and relationships and bridges to other organizations, because we have a greater impact that way. And although obviously as individual organizations and businesses we're struggling, part of the impact really is the legacy of what are we leaving behind to help people during this difficult time, as well as help the businesses and help ourselves, in terms of keeping on and, flourishing. So I'll be watching for what creative relationships were made, and partnerships and, tentacles into the community to be able to create sustainability and support for those around as well as themselves.
Interesting. Yes, the relationships that you formed during COVID. And I know many of us have relationships today that we did not have
For sure.
pre-COVID. And not only do we have relationships today that we did not have pre-COVID, there are relationships we had pre-COVID that we do not have today. It has definitely changed the trajectory. I want to come back to that, Helen. What are some things that you've seen just in general, whether it be nonprofit or for-profit or friends or family, where relationships really made a difference in either the outcome of them staying, in business, or those that actually maybe went out of business because of a relationship that they had that could not support what they were doing?
Well, I think some of a big core of our work is racial justice work at the YWCA. And obviously this has been a time, in addition to a national, international health crisis, it's also been a time of tremendous civil unrest around us. And, it's also been a time that we've been social distancing. So although many people felt comfortable being out in the community protesting and marching, to share their upset about what's been going on, others have not been. Have wanting to participate, but did not feel, able to do that. So, this was an opportunity for us as an organization, because we were social distancing, that I was able to utilize our relationships, reach out to the Black leaders in our community, talk with them about what was needed, and together create a whole series of virtual conversations we were able to bring community together, people that maybe had health issues so they couldn't get out and protest, people that were seniors so that they were worried about getting out, people that had children so that they that maybe they couldn't bring out to protest. And so we were able to create opportunities, hear what was needed from the relationships we had, engage them, and then create programming and opportunities for discussions, important community discussions on systemic racism and implicit bias, on mothering Black sons and why that's different than a white woman like myself mothering my son, and making sure that these messages were delivered to our community right there in their home, and that they, hopefully would be able to embrace them and learn about, white allyship. What does that mean? How does it look like? How do you do it? How is it more than putting a black box on your social media? But again, it all came from relationships and engaging those that either could be out there or that really had the information, so that we could make sure that our programming was on point and supportive of trying to make an impact during this time. But the reality of it is a lot of people were gone. You're correct. I mean, there's businesses and corporations that we have always went to for funding that folded. They just, were no longer present. So it definitely meant a little bit of research, and relationships, engaging people, looking for people, a little sleuthing, a little investigation, to be able to stay connected, find people, find how they were doing. And sometimes people that we needed to talk to up where I am, we're in a hotspot. We were in a hotspot in New Jersey area. So people were sick. And so even when you were reaching out, it's not that they didn't want to be present and support. They just physically were caring for themselves or somebody else at the time. So it's definitely about relationships, having patience, doing the investigation, doing the research, locating people, and then building plans that made sense from there.
Man, I tell you what, listen, I think if you were in New York and you were a business owner, you're right. The hotspots were hit hard. If you pivoted in New York, I'm blown away. I mean, I'm absolutely blown away. And then for those, as you mentioned, that didn't make it. And so that's really why being able to pivot and being able to celebrate those that pivoted really is such a big deal. And I really don't want people to take it lightly. I'm a multipreneur, and all of my businesses are not doing okay. Not all of them, right? Many were hit and impacted in different manners. And so it is not a given that you will come out of this. And on top of that, some of those businesses that are not doing so well have other businesses within the same industry that are, simply because maybe this particular business is downtown. And others, other restaurants that are not downtown where civil unrest had a major impact on whether people wanted to come downtown. So the geographic location then came into play. So I really do want to just stress to you all how excited we are to celebrate and to recognize those that did pivot. At the end of the day, we're all winners in my book, right? The fact that you're still standing, we can get up, look good, even come on this show to have this conversation in light of everything that's going on around us. So Helen, some really, really great point that you made. For everybody that is with us right now, again, whether you're backstage or whether you are on social media, we have been introducing you to our mentors as well as judges. Many of our mentors did offer to serve as judges during the challenge, which will be August 31st, during our PIVOTChamp Summit. DDBS also had to pivot this year, and we did so by planning a 3-day online virtual conference with everything from, I'm telling you, we tried to get as creative as possible. Virtual photo booths online, virtual program booklet, events in a box. So everyone is going to receive a PIVOTChamp swag box with registration materials. We are trying to make it as real and in person as we possibly can. And so we've had a chance to meet several throughout the show. If you missed some of those that were on earlier and what they will be looking for, please go to our original event page derbydiversity.com. And that is where you can learn about what we were talking about earlier by watching the video. And if you want to learn or read the bios for all of the judges that were on with us today, you can find those at PIVOTChamps.com, which is the virtual platform that we are using to promote this year's event. Again, that is PIVOTChamps.com. Before we wrap, Stephanie, would you mind giving us just a few final words and pivoting in general and just what you're looking forward to on the 31st?
I think, as you've said, today to now, that it's really just an accomplishment for anyone to be able to pivot. And honestly, in those, you were making such a great point about some businesses that don't make it or didn't make it, sometimes it was out of their control, geographic location. And even just with us being in New Jersey, we've actually seen a huge rush of patients coming from New York. So this is such an uncertain time that it's so important for everyone to continue to utilize their resources, to be able to think outside the box, and to be able to have a long-term vision and keep in the back of their mind as they go forward what sort of things were tools that they utilize now to be able to pivot.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. So there you have it. We have gone through everything that you can expect to experience from the 31st during the challenge, as well as some of the things that you can expect to experience on the 1st as well as on the 2nd. If you have not registered yet, please do join us. We're going to have a great time. Again, it's pivotchamps.com. If you are a bona fide pivoter and you have a story to tell, we want you to apply. It is including everyone, for-profit, nonprofit. We have 3 different gross revenue categories, so there is no reason why you don't have a shot. Under $1 million is one category, 1 to 5 million is another category, and then 5 million and above. Right now, we're getting ready to go into networking. So I'm going to explain to you all how that works. At 3 o'clock on the left side of your screen, you will see a button that says live, where it says networking. You will simply click live. It will take you to a screen where it then says ready. When you are ready to meet other guests, you will click the ready button and the system will randomly pair you up with peers that have been in attendance today. Should the two of you want to remain connected after today's session, at the top of your screen, there is a blue button that says connect. If you both hit connect, they will then show up in your dashboard when you first log in. Think of it like business cards when you're heading to a trade show. DDBS has had to pivot, and we're trying to make sure that all of our followers and all of our new followers get to meet one another and get to know one another. I thank you all so very, very much for tuning in with us today. I look forward to seeing you all here next week. Same time, same place. For those that may have tuned in a little bit late, feel free to go online again to derbydiversity.com, click on Digital Dialogue Series and watch past shows. Where it says watch past shows, you will be able to find this video along with others. We thank you so very much for tuning in with us today. We look forward to seeing you next week. And in the meantime, we'll see you over at networking.